And the Education Secretary insists English schools are safe in her hands.
This is a new era in accountability for schools, a new era of relentless improvement to drive up standards and open up opportunity for all.
Joining us today, Labour MP Calvin Bailey, Conservative MP Kit Malthouse, Guardian columnist Raphael Baer and former Conservative advisor Salma Shah. This is Politics Live. Let's talk about schools, because Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has given a speech this morning. Have a look at this headline. Ofsted gives first look at new school inspection reports. They have proposed that the old one or two word judgments, good, outstanding, requires improvement, ranging from those 4 grades, will be replaced from the 2025, this year's autumn term, by a report card describing what inspectors have found on key aspects of each school, and they cover a range of things: behaviour and attendance, personal development, quality of education and leadership and management. But let's have a listen to what else Bridget Phillipson had to say in her speech.
When I first started in this job, I said I wanted to put education at the forefront of national life. So I am delighted to see the debate raging over our reforms, particularly since we introduced our Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. I have to say, I welcome it. It is a sign that under this government, once again, education is coming right back to the centre of national debate. I welcome spirited engagement. I welcome robust challenge. I welcome different views, and I will listen to them. That is how we shape the very best education system that our children deserve.
Well, the Shadow Education Secretary, Laura Trott, isn't impressed. She has tweeted this: Labour are hell-bent on eroding school standards. The previous system of one-word judgments from Ofsted provided clarity. This new system is complicated and pleases nobody. The lack of action in response to failing schools, which is a key plank of their schools bill, is weak and will lead to more children falling behind. What do you make of that attack by Laura Trott?
Well, I think fundamentally the approach our government has taken is about improving standards and making sure that the outcomes from our education system aren't based on how you enter it. And that can be macro entry into the system. You know, we look and see that there has been significant failures in SEND. That's something that we recognise. It's a historical problem. We've thrown a significant amount of money in to address it, and there's a number of programmes to address that. There's also, sorry, you were going to...
No, go on. No, go on. You finish. I looked as if I was going to but you finished.
Okay, no. And so I think it's important for us to recognise, if kids don't go to or aren't adequately prepared in having breakfast, for example, when they arrive at school, these things will have a significant impact on their outputs.
Right. Well, let me get Kit. What's your response? I mean, are those fair criticisms, or is it just that you want to talk about education because you think, rightly or wrongly, that was a success for the last Conservative government? But there are a record number of children who are not passing their English and maths GCSEs, and there are nearly 1 in 5 children persistently absent from
no
schools.
No one said there wasn't room for improvement. But in truth, of all the blows that the government, this government has delivered to the country, Bridget, I'm afraid, is delivering easily the most devastating in mucking around with the progress that's made in schools. There's lots more to do. There's always way more to do. And when I was briefly at DFE, behaviour, attendance, absolutely they need to go. But the so-called reforms that she's putting through in the bill fly in the face of 20 years' worth of work across both parties that have been in government that have resulted in our schools improving very significantly. Not perfect, long way to go, but massive improvement. And to be perfectly honest with you, you can already feel the reaction within the Labour Party. And I think come the first reshuffle, I'm afraid Bridget will be toast, because this is the last thing the schools need at the moment is this kind of crazy destabilisation. She's becoming the kind of Donald Trump of education.
These report cards. The report cards are what parents want. There is an improvement. This was something that we know that the parents want, It will improve
But you're
our
a school
ability
government. If
to
you
be
read an
able
Ofsted
to...
report, it already has
they-
detailed review into all these areas if
Not
parents want it.
not
But the
adequately
simplicity of
covered
having a
by-
single target, a single word, was clarity for parents.
What's the problem with this? There seems to be a massive political row over this bill.
OK, well, yeah. So, first of all, I think we can park the Ofsted question.
Yeah.
I think you can have it doesn't seem to be a very substantial change, and ultimately people can argue whether or not how much information you want,
So
or whether
what's the
Ofsted is
government
fit for
trying to
purpose.
do
But in
with
terms of the
Yeah.
school reforms, I think the real problem here is that at core there is a question of whether or not the Labour Party agrees with a principle that actually started under the last Labour government when Ed Balls was the Secretary of State in saying, actually, you need to give a little bit more freedom and control to the schools to decide whether it's their admissions policy or control of their finances or how much they pay teachers. And then, obviously, under Michael Gove, a very radical move in that direction, taking control away from local authorities. There was a long period where Labour in opposition decided, for various reasons, some of it ideological aversion to anything a Tory Secretary of State was doing, that was a bad idea and you shouldn't do it. They've now found themselves back in government. And as far as I can tell, they don't actually have a sort of a doctrinal position on whether or not that was the right direction or the wrong one. So you've got this reform which is sort of diluting it a bit, but not willing to say, we think that's the wrong direction.
We've got to start with some of the major structural failings. So, a big headline, we need another 6,500 teachers or support staff in schools because there aren't enough. It is pointless having a macro design if the previous government has stripped out the fundamentals that allow the schools to just function at the beginning.
If
kids
then why restrict pay and qualifications?
I can't be persuaded, but I don't understand
Let me
why.
put the argument that one of your colleagues in the parliamentary party, Helena Dollimore, said, but there are failing academy schools too, and the accountability isn't there in the same way. This is about improving standards across the board, not trying to bring one sort of side of the education coin down in order to allow local authorities to have more power.
I think if you're a parent and you're watching this and you're thinking about what is the Labour policy around bringing school standards up, it does sound like it's tinkering slightly because it's about the change in the nuance or any of the words that are being given. If there was something more about maybe the way that schools are reviewed or the way that the regulator goes in and assesses the schools and it was a little bit more transparent, perhaps there would be confidence with parents in that situation. I only speak as a parent, and that's how I react to it and try and understand it. I think that fundamentally, again, to Raphael's point, what is the objective here in terms of schools and skills? And do we think that actually free schools or local authorities or reduction in private school is actually going to achieve what we need to in terms of turning out people who are able to participate in a good jobs market, for example?
Right.
And I don't understand where the problem is that the Labour government is trying to, what the problem is that the Labour government is trying to solve with regards to these changes.
Right. Well, Calvin, what is your answer to that question? Are you trying to fix something that ain't broken?
Yeah.
Well, I think there is. Look at SEND. Like SEND is fundamentally a failing.
Well, leave all of
the
this alone
amount
and do
of
that then.
but we are doing that. But we're also having to
concentrate
fix.
on that.
We're also having
We did
to
a SEND
fix
review. You can
schools
pick it
that
up
you
and run
didn't
with it.
put the money into repair that have failings in their rack. We know that we've got a misalignment between some of the policies that are applied to state schools and that aren't applied to academies. Like we have got children that enter the system and their outcomes are based on their economic background, and that just isn't right. We've got to make sure that we address within the system that is largely there some of the fundamental disadvantages.
You've got about 5 seconds.
Okay, so to be fair, I think you've identified the difference here, which is we believed in a pluralist system where people could experiment and be entrepreneurial.
That's
you
it.
believe in monolithic state control.
Oh, well, right, that's a sweeping statement at the end. But anyway, that's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow with more Politics Live at 12:15 here on BBC Two and the iPlayer.